welcome to the program. The stories and images we are presented with in our dreams can be varied, but also very strange. There are also numerous theories we can consider. They can be observed from being purely fantastic to downright clinical and mechanical dreams. That is if we compare the brain to a machine. When we observe these theories, it helps us to put our own ideas into some perspective, and so our interpretation of the dreams would be more successful, more down to earth, and probably even correct. One of the great contributors to the study of dreams was made by Sigmund Freud. He was the psychiatrist by nature, and was deservedly famed and respected more than any of the other well-known names. Although he laid much emphasis on sexual, and all the cartoons showing patients lying on couches, and the doctors with notepads asking them, "Tell me about your childhood." These were based upon the Freudian view of psychoanalysis. He most certainly believed that every human being was born with basic urges, which were suppressed as they grew up and learned to conform to the society. Therefore, it will be great help to go back and find out exactly when a certain urge was first curbed in childhood. It is true that some of Freud's ideas might be laughable today, and considering his views, one can easily discover that he had to exaggerate them. Otherwise, no one would have paid any attention. If his theory about dreams seems sexually oriented, consider that in a survey, about 85% of the men admit that they had sexual dreams, and about 72% of the women agreed with. It is the commonest of all subjects, and after all, in real life, a good sexual relationship is said to be one of the major reasons for a person's happiness and peace of mind. But the question remains. First of all, we cannot ignore that all dreams could be wish fulfilling of the sexual or aggressive impulses in human nature. According to Freud, these urges are with you at all times from birth, but social training keeps them under control. Obviously, to be living in an ordered society, you cannot go around and simply gratifying your basic urges all the time. Only in dreams, when your conscious mind is not on top of the situation, can these suppressed urges have a chance to come out. Freud believed this 100% and explained why we dream in an almost different language. Not like in real life circumstances, but doing absurd things, usually with no clear sense of logic, as we all know. Because these urges are totally controlled by the conscious part of the mind, it is as if they can only be allowed out of the night in disguise, using strange combinations of events and secret sign language to get past the guard, the conscious mind on patrol. What are the sign language of this psychological condition? I hear you ask. Even if dreams do not appear to be about sex at all, Freud maintained that under the surface they invariably are. If a dream merely seems to pick out an event from yesterday or a recollection from the past, Freud thought that the incident was chosen out of all other possibilities because it linked up specifically with the urge being expressed in a dream. Freud's list of sexual sign language seems endless in the attempt to disguise the true nature of the dream. And the unconscious uses a wide variety of normal everyday objects to stand for sexual things. All elongated objects, such as sticks, tree trunks, and umbrellas, may stand for the male organ, as well as long, sharp weapons such as knives, daggers, and pikes, in his own words. Boxes, cases, chests, cupboards, and ovens represent the uterus, and also hollow objects such as ships and vessels of all kinds. Rooms in dreams are usually seen as women. With this means of disguise, the conscious is not alarmed, and so allows us to sleep on peacefully. The watchful part of the mind does not see through to the basic urge that is being expressed in a wish-fulfilling dream. This theory may seem ridiculous at first, but if someone has a sexual problem, it is more than likely that Freud's method will help to interpret their dream world. During our studies, we have heard often the following. A young girl at college worried about finding a boyfriend, yet unsure of her ability to cope with sex, dreams of a large black gun firing off into a bare white room. We have also been told that there can hardly be the need for a psychoanalyst to help her see the wish fulfillment suggested by that dream. The sexual urge is very often expressed through other basic desires, like the appetite for food, for instance. Anyone watching certain scenes in some films a while ago in which the hero enjoys flirtatious meal with a loose lady, admittedly they are smacking of lips over the roast chicken. And this hints more than stomach hunger. In a dream, enjoying a meal with gusto can stand for an open, eager attitude towards sexual desires. A common type of man's dream goes like this. Oh, I walk into a beautiful dining chamber with glowing lights and a magnificent feast spread out on the table in the center. Other people seem to be helping themselves freely to the food and wine, enjoying it all enormously. I want to go and help myself too, but cannot move forward. Finally, a beautiful girl comes over and gives me a plate of food. I accept, but when I eat it, it tastes like liver and makes me feel sick. According to Freud, this dream represents a man's fear of sex and his ability to find a happy sexual relationship. The fact that he sees everyone else around him enjoying it only makes him more inadequate and unable to cope. Interestingly, the girl takes the first step by giving him the plate of food. That is making an advance. In real life, this man probably worries about girls a great deal, thinking they are a bit forward. The relevance of this story with Freud's view is that the personal recollection may support the sexual nature of a dream. It might turn out that the young man was often given liver as a child, his mother probably saying, "Come on, love, it's good for you, eat it up." This would also suggest a confused attitude about women, that he has not grown up sufficiently to be on his own feet and out of his mother's influence. You see, Freud believed that sexual feelings start with a child's desire for the mother in boys and the father in girls. Perhaps the dream is also expressing the man's fear that if he does give way to his sexual urges, punishment will result as it did when he was a child. This is partly prevalent for parents living under strict fanatical and cultist dictums of the religious kind. And I have personally experienced seeing this too happen within my own family, conducted into Jehovah's Witness faith. These days, people have a much broader view about sex, and the Freudian view seems a bit one-sided at first. But in his lifetime, during the late 19th century, young people, especially women, were brought up to regard sexual feelings or any other impulsive, natural outburst of emotions as socially forbidden, even unfit. The upper middle classes of Vienna, where he lived and worked, were particularly straight-laced and admiring of controlled intellectual pursuits. No one spoke about feelings or passions, and they were only given way too deep in secret in the boudoir and brothels inhabited by the so-called fallen women. No wonder that most of Freud's patients were more confused and anxious about sexual feelings than anything else. His thoughts were naturally concentrated on this area, and this was reflected in his findings. However, there is a certain degree of difficulty in following the theory of Freud, because not all dreams are concerned with the wish fulfillment. Later in his life, he began to change his mind about this part of his work. For example, earlier interpretation would be more appropriate if the man in the dream took the plate of food from the girl, gobbled it all up, and asked her for more. The bad endings are explained by saying that the conscious mind on patrol is sufficiently alerted to these feelings coming out of that, it steps in and putting everything in order once again. It indeed adds on the right ending to crush the urge once more. This way, that all dreams do express the wish fulfillment of a basic sexual or aggressive desire. Most of what Freud uncovered in his study of dreams has passed into our everyday lives. Believe it or not, a large proportion of film or television advertising of today is based on the wish fulfillment principle, just like a dream. The cigarette or alcohol or Coca-Cola salesman says, "Here is an ideal world. Fulfill your urge to be a sex king or prince or goddess of love by using our product." We are being advised that if you want some practice at recognizing objects with a Freudian sexual link, try studying the advertisements. Sleek cars full of power that respond to every command, satisfying cigarettes smoked by two in a field of corn or wherever, long cool drinks in exotic places, followed by high dives into the blue seas or swimming, and the underlying sexual tone soon becomes very evident indeed. What about those aftershave lotions, perfumes, and other beauty products that have women falling at the feet of champions? These pictures, sex and aggression, are very directly combined altogether. Maybe some of us need to let the steam off in our dreams. Aggression is not necessarily a desire to go out and fight with grenades and guns or boxing gloves and so forth. In a much wider sense, it means the basic drive for power and domination. Alfred Adler, one of Freud's best-known followers, expanded this view. He put forward the idea that everyone has an equally strong drive within them, the need to dominate. Furthermore, it usually springs from some basic inadequacy or lack, which is unconsciously recognized at an earlier age. The rest of life is spent trying to compensate for it. Adler's theory has been popularized in such ideas as small man, like Napoleon Bonaparte, lusting for power, or that bold men are very sexual to make up for their supposed lack of looks. It may seem that both Freud and Adler take a fairly dim view of the human nature. Their ideas are based on a sort of an ending warfare between basic drives and the need to keep them under control. Letting these drives out in wish-fulfilling or power-satisfying dreams is like letting the stream, or I should say steam, out of a kettle. However, as we discover, if they are permanently bottled up, severe nervous breakdowns could result. So, the dreams provide a convenient escape valve. However, this does not explain why many people actually wake up from their dreams. If the Freudian view was entirely right, then everyone would always sleep peacefully after a dream, having worked off some infantile wish or urges. But quite often, the reverse occurs, and we are very disturbed by the things that take place during dreams, such as anger and emotions. It seems sometimes that a dream is acting as a voice of conscience, especially in terrifying dreams, or call it nightmares. Let's make a comparison between Jung and Freud. Carl Gustav Jung disagreed quite forcibly with Freud and his followers over this idea of dreams, as well as the view that repressed sexual or domination drives are the key to understanding the sign language of dreams. Jung saw clearly that Freud's great achievement was in drawing people's attention to the idea of the unconscious mind and how he related it to dreams. But he disagreed with Freud on a number of fundamental issues and points. For one thing, Freud always used dreams as a way of getting back to the basic cause of a problem. Usually he found it in some important event in childhood, even in the moment of birth, which had affected the patient's view of himself throughout his life. Freud believed that unearthing the problem through psychoanalysis, including a discussion of a person's dreams could often lead to a cure. Once the basic urge is recognized and coped with in real life, the obsession or fear produced by keeping it forcibly locked up inside would disappear. Freud describes a young man he once helped who had a morbid fear of going out in the street because he thought he would kill everyone in sight. It gradually emerged from his dreams and remembrances of childhood that he had at one stage heartily disliked his father, so much so that at the age of 7 he had made a bad mistake and deeply felt like killing him. When his father eventually died of old age, the young man felt very guilty, or rather felt that he should. He transferred his feelings to everyone outside and punished himself by locking himself up in his room all day long. Once he recognized the urge dating back to his early childhood, he was able to come to terms with his fear, and his condition greatly improved. However, Jung took an entirely different view of dreams. He admitted that a great deal of what Freud had discovered was true, but he believed that the language of dreams was not just some secret code for basic drives, for wishes to be fulfilled. Going back, in Freud's way, seemed to reduce people's dreams to a set of rather unattractive, self-centered needs. He wondered why dreams so often seemed to inspire people, to encourage them in their waking lives to do bigger and better things. A good consideration, I would say. He was fascinated by the strange array of mysterious objects and creatures that occurred in dreams. Freud's theory seemed to relate all parts of a dream to something inside the dreamer's own makeup. But to Jung, this did not account for the pictures, which appeared to come from a fantasy world outside the dreamer's everyday view of life. Jung's solution to this mystery was that all human beings have two parts to their unconscious. Freud had looked at the part which hides personal and instinctive urges away. Jung now identified part that is filled with strange, primitive imaginings, which are common to everyone everywhere. For example, why do children love stories of witches, ogres, and fairies when they have no real life experience of these creatures at all? Why do people invent monsters in their dreams when there are no such things in the world, in real life? Jung suggested that we all share a collective unconscious, for we all respond to these basic matters. Many civilizations in all parts of the world have created exactly the same pictures in dreams, and fairy stories and myths, and they are readily understood by people from another country or even from another age, no matter how old they are. Throughout the history, various nations have created remarkably similar stories about their heroes. For instance, Moses was found in the bulrushes. Jesus was born in an equally humble stable. The Greek goddess Aphrodite was born out of the sea, just as the first ancient Inca ruler came out of a lake. There is no apparent reason for the similarity in legend, folklore, and/or religion. Jung suggests that everyone has a natural tendency to think in these globally familiar ways. Let's talk about archetypes now, because it's relevant. These ideas are universal and termed as archetypes, meaning the original of a type. They are based on ancient beliefs, and which, according to Jung, we inherit rather than learn. So old and general are they that we do not need to ask what they mean anymore when they appear in the mind's eye. We simply recognize them deep down without having to question them. These archetypes are the language, the secret code of dreams. By putting this theory into practice, let us consider the familiar figure of the hero. There are many instances in classical myths, as with the adventures of Hercules, Odysseus, or Prometheus. In Britain, there was the ideal of King Arthur and Sir Lancelot, or St. George and the Dragon. In Australia, particularly in Victoria, Ned Kelly became a hero of mythic proportions. And there are countless examples from the Old West of the United States. Even in modern dress, the hero persists in comic strip characters such as Superman, Batman, and the others. Jung was simply explaining that no one has to tell you what a hero is. You know what the person stands for as soon as you see the type. Most of the archetypes to which Jung drew people's attention were of religious nature. Jung was, for a long time, Freud's disciple, and when he broke away from him because he disagreed with his views, he also developed a great interest in Eastern philosophies and religions. In turn, people have disagreed violently with Jung, saying that this collective unconscious is a lot of nonsense and cannot be proved scientifically. At least Freud had some factual basis for his beliefs. But in one sense, the Jungian view is easy to accept, because he also believed that the archetypes as they appear in dreams are our reflections of ourselves. Many religions have a similar philosophy when they say God is really inside the individual. But what if a dream includes a friend that you can recognize or even know people at all? Jung maintained that the friend is there because he or she reflects part of yourself. A room may stand for your own mind in the inside of yourself. In this way, all the Jungian archetypes are simply representations of the human condition. Where they come from, no one can say, but they appear concrete in the world of dreams, like well-known actors on a private stage show. Monsters are a projection, a representation of our own innermost fears. Heroes are a real-life realization of our own tendency to do good and brave deeds. A witch is another familiar archetype, represents destructive feminine impulse in human beings. Because these archetypes are showing us to ourselves. They are easily recognizable, even by children. No one needs to explain to a child that the giant in Jack and the Beanstalk is all bad, and that the fairy godmother in Cinderella is completely trustworthy. In the actual stories, neither of these characteristics is proved. It is just known and accepted by the children hearing the tale. The same is true of the archetypes of dreams. We do not read them up in books, for they come naturally to mind. There is a mystery about the source of the archetypes. If you are religious, you will find it easy to believe that they spring from a force beyond human understanding. Others might accept that there is a basic energy in human nature, which has over the centuries responded to certain unconscious forces. These are revealed in the archetypes. You certainly know that it is easy to get knocked back by other people's negative observations or criticisms. However, it is important to view our vulnerabilities as strength, not a weakness. We need to find the strength within ourselves to explore and accept others' criticisms without allowing them to damage our self-confidence. Subtle shifts in the way you dress, your body language, or even the way you speak are the small yet assertive steps towards gaining more confidence. Lao Tzu says, "Health is the greatest possession. Contentment is the greatest treasure. Confidence is the greatest friend." Keep smiling and be happy. We shall meet again by the next episode. Thank you.